So the purpose of today's video is just to set us up for class tomorrow. You see up here at the top that we are jumping into our next section of our algebra unit on combining like terms. And there's some words up at the top that we need to define, and I'm hoping that we can just use this video to do that so that tomorrow we can just jump right in. So the first word that we have to define is what a coefficient is. And a coefficient is a number that is multiplied by a variable. It's just given this fancy kind of term, and you'll hear me use it often in class, so it is one that you need to learn and be able to use as well. I'm just going to write in an example here just so that you understand what this means. It's a number that's multiplied by a variable. So oftentimes in algebra we'll see something like 7x. And the coefficient is just this number. It's the number in front of the variable. We call that the coefficient of that term. So 7x, the coefficient is 7. That is what a coefficient is, and just a word that we need to be able to use in class. So the next word that we need to define is a constant. And a constant is really just another way to say a number, an integer. But we're going to see them and call them constants here in our algebra unit. So the fancy way to say this is just that it's a term that's in our expression that doesn't have a variable attached. It's a constant number that doesn't change. So for example, if there was a +3 at the end of an expression or a -2 at the end of an expression, that is the constant. It's not going to change unless it's combined with other terms. So after this constant, we have what is called a variable, and you guys are familiar and know how to use that. Just to give you the definition for it, it's something that we use, a symbol. Oftentimes that symbol is a letter of some sort to represent a piece of information we don't know. X and Y are the most common ones that you'll see, but throughout this unit you should be okay and comfortable seeing any sort of symbol or letter that represents a piece that you don't know. Sometimes you might have to solve, sometimes you're just simplifying, so that is a difference in definition piece that we'll have to get into, but a variable is just something you don't know, and there's a placeholder there for it. So the next two are really what we need to set ourselves up for tomorrow, because all of our expressions, and we talked about evaluating expressions already, and within each of these expressions are terms, and there's different types of terms that you can see. I know that term is a word that maybe you've heard before in different contexts, but in an algebraic expression there are several types of terms. You can have a number, like our constant up here, that is a type of term. You could have a variable that's standing by itself, that is a type of term. Or you could have a product, which is again just a way to tell us that we're multiplying of a number and a variable, which is kind of that combination piece of the coefficient we saw earlier. And so in my parentheses right here, I just wrote one of each of those for you. You could have a number, or that constant that I have here is 4. You could have a variable like your y, and then you could have a product, so something like 7 times x, a number and a variable. All of these are different types of terms. And we're going to see all of them at different points during this unit and study with our expressions. So then up at the top of the page, again, today we're combining like terms. And so in order for us to be able to combine like terms, we need to know what makes terms like. Because we just defined what terms are and how we see them, but how do we know if the terms are like? And simply we know that if they have the same variable attached to them, or lack thereof, maybe they're just whole numbers, those would be a like term as well that you're able to combine, or those variables have to be raised to the same power. So both of these pieces need to be included in our definition. These are terms that have the same variable and are raised to the same power. So we're going to do an activity that we'll practice just identifying whether terms are like or not like. But as long as they have the same variable attached, they have the same exponent, that's what the same power means, then the terms are like. And then there's really just one more term that I'm going to throw down in the little space that you still have before the word identify, because we have been talking about expressions and evaluating them, and now we're moving into simplifying them. but we haven't actually formalized a definition for an expression. So just in this little space down here below, if you could write out the word expression, there should be enough space for us to get this in before the next piece of notes there. But an expression in algebra is a string of positive and negative terms. So in the past, maybe you've looked at expressions and seen plus signs and minus signs and addition and subtraction, but really as we move into this unit and this higher level of thinking, we know positive and negative numbers. And so all of these terms really just have a positive or negative symbol in front of them, and they're all strung together to make an expression. But I think understanding that concept is really going to make our lives a little simpler as we jump into the rest of this algebra unit. So again, an expression is just a string of positive and negative terms, and hopefully this little setup will help us move tomorrow just as we start putting some meaning to these different words. So that's all you had to do for tomorrow. I'll be coming around to make sure these notes are completed and words are defined.